So for everyone that doesn't know, Cameron runs a media agency and they run all the ads for our Instagram, Facebook campaigns across multiple different businesses. And we've used other agencies in the past. And the thing that was just the best out of all of it is the fact that you care as much as we do for those campaigns to be successful. And when you're with like a huge agency, that's very rare. You don't normally get that.
Yeah. Do you know what I always say? Because we are a small agency, I mean, it's a team of 3. So I get really invested into our clients because I don't take anyone on. I know I was hounding you and chasing you around,
Yeah.
but genuinely, we don't just work with anyone. And another big thing is that I like to work with people, and I can never really explain this, and it sounds bad, but I work with people who are cool, who I like, who I get on with.
Thanks.
And that helps me to actually care. If you were just a pain in the ass, I'd think, oh man, maybe campaign, hopefully it's going well. But it's always nice when you actually like the people that you're working with, because it just helps you to kind of go that extra mile and maybe work at a time when you wouldn't normally work, or work after hours, or do something like that, if you actually have an interest in them succeeding. So that's one thing I also try to do. Obviously, you don't make as much money that way. You could take on loads of clients, but in terms of longevity and kind of providing a good service, which is probably the most important thing that's forgotten by a lot of agencies, I'd say it's the best thing to do.
How did you get into it in the first place? So who are you? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, so I've got it's funny you say that, because if you would have asked me about a month ago, I would probably have given you a different answer. But in terms of the entire marketing paid traffic world, I remember when I was 16, I did work experience with my sister, and she worked at a really big marketing agency, and it wasn't to do with they had a social media department, but they just did everything. And I remember looking through the spreadsheets, and the numbers that they were writing down were huge. They're like, yeah, we'll just put £1 million towards that. Some of their clients were like Ford and all these brands, and I thought, wow,
Right.
they spend a lot of money, and they were just numb to it. But me, I was looking at the numbers thinking, wow, that's crazy. And then I'd be a liar if I didn't say that when I first went into it, I thought, wow, I can get rich like this. I was like 18. I thought, wow, this is my road to riches. And then once I actually got into it, I really enjoyed the psychology behind marketing and sales. And that's why I think my approach is a little bit different, in a sense where I don't mind what platform we're on, because I'm a bit of a nerd, and I've studied sales and marketing and all these things. So it works whichever platform we're on. We could do it on newspaper, and I'm sure I'd be okay in print and all these other things. So I kind of started by just working with anyone. I was just like, yeah, I'm a marketing agency and I work with anyone. And then I quickly realized that doesn't work. The more I learned about marketing, the more I learned you had to be specific with your offer and things like this. So then I thought, I'll work with e-commerce brands, because I tried to work with traditional businesses, and they weren't really getting it. I was telling them about, hey, you need to do this on social media and this, and they don't get that. They're kind of an older generation. Marketing online, they don't really hear it. They want to be in the newspaper, and they've made millions for years. So who am I? I'm just a young kid to tell them that they need to be online. So naturally it went to e-commerce. And then really recently, since working with you, to be honest, and seeing how much I've kind of enjoyed it, and how many variables and different things that you can change with kind of coaches, consultants, and along those lines, I reckon if in a couple of weeks, we'll be leaning more towards that side, actually helping coaches, consultants, and other agencies to kind of sign more clients and increase their revenue.
Nice. And why do you think the brick and mortar businesses, the kind of older school ones, don't get it? You think it's just a generational thing?
I think they do now.
Right.
More so than they were before. When I first started, just think, if something's working for you, you can't imagine having to change it. I think one thing that our or my generation essentially has is that we are just quick to pivot if that's working, and sometimes that can be our downfall. If something's working, you might jump on it. Whereas with the older generation, it's like what they've been doing has been working for years. So especially as a young kid, I can't go and tell them, hey, I've got no business. I still live with my mum. How can I tell them that, hey,
Yeah.
you need to jump on this new wave? So I think that's part of what it is. And yeah, another thing, they just didn't really know much about it. And I guess to critique myself, I probably wasn't selling it in the best way. Which if I went back now, I could possibly be better at it. But at the time, I guess my approach combined with their rigidness just wasn't really a good fit.
I think the thing as well is that it takes an upfront investment as well in order to kind of get started with paid
Mm,
advertising. And if you've never done that before, it's the whole risk versus reward of something you know and that you've done for a while that makes money versus this new shiny thing that might make you money, but it's unknown to you. So it's way more scary
yeah.
as a business.
Yeah. And to be honest, you probably won't make money when you start. And that's something that no agency is going to approach you and say, if you have not run
Yeah.
paid traffic before, I'm not going to be able to flick a switch on Facebook and, oh my gosh, we're making thousands now. So that's also something that's hard. They didn't believe it in the first place. And then if you were to come in the first month, I've got to tell them, hey, give me 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 pounds to spend. I'm not going to bring you any money back, but
Yeah.
I'm just going to find out some things and do testing and all these things. They're going to say, forget it. They
Yeah,
weren't
for
bought in
sure.
initially, and we didn't hit the ground running, so they're just never going to accept that.
So for coaches, if you're an online coach and
Mm.
you want to get into paid marketing, or you think you've just heard that your friend does it or you've seen someone else doing it, what's the best thing you could do? Like, what position do you need to be in before you first come to someone like yourself to start doing ads?
Yeah, good question. So I think the first thing you need to have is you need to have an offer that's validated. And what I mean by that is you need to be already making money organically through another means. Because something I always like to say is that paid traffic is fuel to the fire. It's never going to revive a business. Something I always like to say with clients on calls or whatever, I always say that we can't polish a turd. So if it's not selling already, I can't make any paid traffic.
Do
People
you,
don't
do you actually
don't
say
look.
that to your clients?
I literally say, I always say that it's one of my favorite things to say. We can't polish a turd because and it sounds rude, and maybe it is. Maybe I need to avoid saying that. But to kind of to cut the crap, essentially, if your offer isn't, if people don't resonate with the offer, that's your warm audience. Remember, these people know you,
Mm,
they've seen you, they follow you on Instagram, they've heard about you. If they don't want to buy, then a cold audience is never ever going to buy from you. And I think that's really important. So the first thing and the most important thing is they need to have already have somewhat of a proof of concept organically. And that's why I was chasing you down so much, because I knew that working with you, it could be a hit. Whereas not with everyone, that isn't always the case. So that's what I would say before doing paid traffic. But something about us that a lot of other brands don't do is that I wouldn't just say we're a paid traffic agency only. As you know, I like this stuff. So I'll help
yeah.
build out the offer. I might help with the landing page. I might help put a few things in place that are needed before the paid traffic. So oftentimes when people come to us, they just want paid traffic. And I say, well, slow down a bit. Let's work through all these variables. We've got a specific kind of set of things that you need to go through, and once each one's ticked off, then we can move to the next. But paid traffic is typically the last step in a business, where I feel like nowadays people want to jump to paid traffic just to straight away without putting the groundwork in first.
Yeah, I think it's like you said when you were like 18, because you hear of numbers that people do on paid traffic, like, oh, a
Mm,
million on Facebook ads or whatever. You just think to yourself, oh, cool, this is just a machine. I could put money in this end, and then on the other end, I'm just going to get out like 10 times whatever I put in. And
exactly.
that's not realistic. It's actually exactly what you said. You have to have that offer so clearly defined in the beginning and make sure that it's working before you can then do what you said, which is just add fuel to that fire. Just kind of
Mm.
the ad should help grow things that you have working already.
Exactly. And it's like you said, because because the barrier to entry is so low, it's like you can start a Facebook campaign by spending $10 a day or $5 a day. It seems like it's for everybody. When I don't necessarily think that that's the case. I think, like you said, if everything's done correctly, then you can start with paid traffic. But I always tell people normally to possibly wait a bit for paid traffic, because it's an expensive way to test. I always like to say you need to validate your offer with 3 things, whether that's outbound. If you're a coach, you can do outbound. E-commerce brands can't really do outbound, but you can do outbound. You can send DMs to people, you can email people. We have all these structures, and we'll help you to do those. Actually validate your offer, and once the offer is validated, once people are biting, now I might say to you, look, this is working really well, let's do the paid route. Because the people that you're going to pay to show your face to, or your brand to, they don't know you from a hole in the wall. So everything needs to be perfect to get those people to buy. Whereas someone who knows you a little bit, even if they've only seen your face once, they're much warmer. So paid is harder than organic, but there's no limit to kind of scalability.
Sure. And how, when we're talking about people having a valid offer that they can give to people, if you're a coach watching this and you have literally no idea what that means. So if currently your way of selling is come and use my service, you get a weekly check-in, you get a diet plan, you get a training plan. If that's, and I'm just doing feature, that's my service, come and buy it. What would be a better way, or how would you frame an offer? Is there like some sort of structure that you put out?
There isn't a structure. The thing that I always say is that it needs to be transformation driven, or essentially benefit driven, especially if you're working. So as a coach, if you're working with someone who's a beginner, more so a beginner, they don't know about the mechanism or what you need to do. They don't really care about what you need to do. They just want the result. So
Sure.
for kind of an easy way to say, if you're, instead of being a coach, to say, hey, what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you how to do 50 press ups, and we're going to do this workout and that workout. Instead, especially for a beginner, your offer just needs to be, hey, I'll help you get a 6-pack in 6 weeks. Whether that's feasible, I don't know, but that's kind of what I mean. You want to touch on the actual transformation, the actual benefit that they will get. If you're to work with people who are a little bit more advanced, those people you can touch on the mechanism a little bit, because that might help people to realize that you actually are an expert. So it might be, we're going to use this particular workout to get you to the desired result. But an offer, I always say, is what you get after working with you, or throughout working with you, as opposed to what you're delivering. And something, again, that I always like to say is that, and this is what I did, everybody probably does this when they start. They think about the skills that they have, and they're like, yes, the market must want them. I know how to do. So for example, in my instance, I know how to do Facebook ads. The market must want that. They have to want Facebook ads. Whereas that is the complete opposite to how we need to think. We need to look at a market and think, what do they need? I can't tell them their solution. They need to know what they need. So again, for a coach, you look at your clients or your target audience. What do they need? Do they want a bikini body? Do they want to get stronger? Do they want to get fitter? Whatever it is, and then you offer them that. What you deliver, they don't really care. I have another thing that I say, is that you sell what they want and you deliver what they need. So your offer just needs to be what they want. That's all you're selling. How you do it, they don't care. Whether they have to do sit-ups, whether they have to do press-ups, they just want to get this desired transformation. And that's the switch that I think people often have to make to actually make their offer one that's successful.
I think it was Alex Hormozy who said to sell the holiday, not the flight.
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
kind of like the same thing.
Yeah,
But it all sort of stems from just knowing your customer, right? Even if it's a case of just getting a pen and paper and just sitting there and writing out like exactly who that customer persona is. And then everything you do is based around desired outcomes for that person, calling that person out, creating content for that person, not creating content for you because you know it all already.
Exactly. And another thing that you kind of just prompted me on is that I think a good offer, especially when you're starting out, should be specific. And now what a lot of people do is, when they've just started their business, they try to sell to everyone. They want an offer that resonates with everybody. But you need to resonate with someone first. So maybe there's only 10 people who are in your specific target audience. But once you've closed all 10 of those, then do a slightly broader offer. When you start out, you're better off being a coach who works with women who are recovering from pregnancy, or something, like a really niche down offer. Because when you see someone, who's going through these exact problems that you've mentioned, they're going to resonate with that. Whereas if you're just a PT who helps with everything, unless you're at the top, unless you're kind of a well-respected name or at the top of your game, people aren't really going to care. So the more specific the offer, the better. And I know it doesn't have scalability, and I know people don't really want to hear that. But if you want to cut through the noise, the more, especially with paid traffic, the more specific the offer, the better. And then once you've tapped out that niche, once everybody in that niche knows you and either works with you or knows about you, and you can't squeeze any more juice out of it, then you go to a bigger level. Then instead of being people who have just finished their pregnancy, then you go to just women in general. And then your final stage could be you're a personal trainer for everybody. But when starting out, the more specific, the easier it is to cut through the noise.
And there's definitely, when you consider the reach that you've got, you can be like hyper specific on things and still reach enough people to fill your business. I mean, as an online coach, let's say if you had like 60 clients, then you'd probably be doing pretty good for yourself. Up to 100 clients, you'd be so busy, you'd have to start bringing people on to help you. And so even if you were for guys over 35 who are on a plant-based diet, that are busy CEOs and don't have time to do things themselves and have OCD or something, if you got really specific, there will be at least 50 people that you could reach that have those very niche things that you're focusing on. And
Absolutely.
And they'll be much more inclined to take you on than someone who just does everything.
Absolutely. And another thing that people also forget is that if you have a really good offer, those 50 people, they have a huge amount of purchasing power. So I say this to people who have like 1,000 followers. They say, "Oh, I want to get 10,000 followers," but you don't need this big following. There's so much purchasing power out of those 50 people that as long as you, one, can actually give them their desired transformation, and two, are actually selling the number one thing that they want, you don't have to have 20,000 people who are signed up to your program. You could have 10, as long as you're doing a really, really good a good service, and then you can start to charge a bit higher ticket. You don't need to work with everybody in the world. You can just provide a really good service, the best service possible to those 10, and then you'll be able to charge a high ticket, which people might be afraid to do. But I think oftentimes I'm more likely to sign up with even if it was a coach, for example, I'd be more likely to sign up with one who has less clients, who's going to speak directly to me, and everything kind of along those lines. So I think another thing is that we think that we need loads of people to sign up with us, when you don't. You could have 10 people, but they're paying you a decent whack because you're actually taking the time to sit and work with them, and make sure that they're really going through that transformation. So there's a few different approaches that I don't think people need to be scared to delve into. I'm a big fan of high ticket things, and it might seem like you're just out for money, but I think it's actually the opposite. I think if something's high ticket, that means I can dedicate a lot of time to you, and I can make sure that the service is actually worth it. Whereas I've got some clients or that I'm helping, and they offer a much lower ticket, and I actually say to them that that's a ripoff. Even though it's much cheaper, I would say the service would be better if you 10x the price and 20x what your service you're delivering. So that's another thing that I kind of wanted to touch on. You don't need loads of people. You could have 10 clients and be killing it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd pay much more for a coach that had less clients. If I knew that they only had like 20 clients or something and that was it, and especially if you had to wait, like go on their waiting list to get in, like I'd want to be with them even more. But I would pay way more for someone like that than someone who has like 100 clients for that extra service. So when people start out in the first place, what are some of the most common mistakes that they make? Like if someone decides they're going to do this on their own, what sort of things do they generally get wrong?
Yeah. So there's a few things. So the first one is that people approach paid traffic in the wrong way. And what I mean by that is because there's all these interesting nuances that you can do on Facebook. You can do a lookalike audience. You can target this. You can target that. People forget the actual what marketing is. So back in the day, people would post up a billboard, and the only thing that would be important would be the creative and the offer and the copy. That's the only thing that matters. They can't track all these things. So people had a big people really focused on those things. Now, since we can be a lot more data driven, people have decided that what you actually show to your audience doesn't matter. The copy doesn't matter. As long as I can find my ideal target audience, then that's important. But one thing I say, and what you'll notice, obviously, we're doing your campaigns, oftentimes we have broader audiences than most people. But what I do is I make sure that the creative, the copy, and the offer is good. Those are the three most important things. A lot of our campaigns are broad, absolutely no targeting, and are doing really well because the offer speaks to our target audience. So I don't need to necessarily go in there and find them with kind of a magnifying glass. Facebook can do that. Facebook, I like to say I'm good, but Facebook is unfortunately smarter than me, and I say that for everyone. So that's the first thing. I don't think people are focusing on their creative copy and offer enough. And another thing, people are trying to sell too early. So I can't remember who I pinched this from, but somebody said that trying to sell too early with your ad is like walking up to a girl in the bar and just trying to kiss them straight away. They said you have to work with them. So the ad is really important to note. The ad only sells the click. That's all it does. We don't want you to buy from the ad. We want you to get to our landing page. Now, the landing page also has two jobs. It might be to book in a call. It might be to sell that person. But if we're trying to sell people too early, people don't like that. Like I said, people want to, whoa, what are you doing? You can't chill out a little bit. Let me get to know you first. And that's another problem, especially with something like coaching, where it's so personal. They're buying into you really and truly. So you have to actually have some touch points. So that's another thing. And then one more mistake I see, which is kind of similar to that, is that people want to get paid on the front end too much. And look, in an ideal world, your cold audience will pay you at a 10x return. But at the end of the day, something I say is, if you can break even at that first touch point, then you've done okay. And I know that that's hard to say, especially with someone starting up. It's difficult to say, but you're not always going to be able to make money with that cold audience. But where you make the money is maybe with the lifetime value. So if you're a coach and you're coaching someone for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, if you break even on that first month, that's fine. That's good, in fact, because if they're going to stay for 5, 6 months, that's a 6x in the long run. So I think people need to be a little bit more realistic with the numbers that they're hoping for, and think about things in the long term, which I know is difficult, especially when you're starting up, because at the end of the day, rent needs to be paid now. So you can't talk to me about getting paid in 6 months' time. But if you need to make money on the front end immediately, then I would say that paid traffic might not be for you at this stage.
Are there other ways that people can use paid traffic? So if you're trying to build up that trust with a cold audience, are there things that you can do just for like brand awareness or to get people's emails, like that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. You can just do, like you said, brand awareness. When you run paid traffic, what you'll notice is your social following will just increase. That's because there's so many eyeballs on your brand. You can collect emails. You can essentially do, you can go any angle with it that you like. And that again might be something that's good to do, because especially if you're selling something that's high ticket, people don't want to spend on the front end. People might need 6, 7, 8 touch points with you. They might need to get on a sales call. They might need to watch a video of yours. They might need to follow you for months. They might need to DM you a bit before they buy, and that's okay. So again, sometimes selling too aggressively to our cold audience is sometimes something that goes wrong. So sometimes now, and even some with kind of some of your brands, where we're mainly for most of the month, we're just kind of gathering information, giving them info, giving them advice, giving them help, and things like that. And then later down the line, we might sell to them. And that's especially important with something that's higher ticket.
Don't give all our secrets away, Cameron.
Yeah.
So with the Facebook algorithm, which you mentioned, where do you see that going over the next few years? Are we going to get to a point whereby the AI is going to become so advanced that you can just chuck in bits of copy or just do very little work, press a button, and then the algorithm just does everything?
Yes and no. So I think that the only thing that marketing agencies or people who are marketing are going to have to do is build the offer, make the creative and the copy. So the actual creative side of the ad, what people see, where the algorithms are now already, especially with something like TikTok, is that if you do too much targeting, if you do too much on the back end, results are actually worse. So I'd say at this stage, we're actually at a point where you can just let the ads go now, really and truly. Especially the more you spend, obviously, the more Facebook will learn about you, about your target audience. Um, I would say we're almost at that stage. I think one thing that again we'll never be able to neglect, or hopefully not, is the actual creative side, because that's what differentiates you from another brand. So I do think that the algorithm is gonna continue to get better, but I think that's just gonna knock out things like targeting and lookalike audiences, retargeting, everything like that. Those things can go, but I think that the creative element, I think that's always going to stay, because that's a human touch. There's not really, hopefully not anytime soon, because I might be out of a job. But I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
I use an AI for some of our copywriting. So
Mm,
because I'll write stuff out in a general gist of how I think it should be, and then I'll pop it into this website that I use, which is an AI, and then
mm,
it will give me rewritten versions of it in different tones. So it could be witty or dry or funny or charismatic,
mm.
and it's not perfect, but there are some little gems that come up in there, and I'm like, oh, that
Yeah, yeah,
reads
yeah.
much better. So I'll like take that bit, put it in my copy, and just move it around a bit to make it better.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of things like that, there are definitely AI that helps. And I've kind of tried to use some. Maybe it's just from an egotistical standpoint, but because
Yeah,
I've studied a lot of copy, I like to stray kind of away from them. But like you said, they definitely chuck in a few gems, and it's good to use, especially if you're stuck for ideas.
yeah, awesome. So, given, let's say you had a $5,000 budget, right, and you could only
Hmm.
spend it on one platform for advertising, would it be TikTok? All things
Oh,
considered. So, actually, let's give you like a customer persona. Let's say you're a coach and you're targeting men and women in their late 20s in the UK. Which platform would you
yeah.
invest your 5 grand into?
Okay. And one more question. What am I selling?
As you're selling a group coaching package for a challenge you're going to run.
Okay, I would probably still go Facebook, to be honest.
Would
I
you?
would go Facebook. I just think yeah, I would go Facebook. I think it's the algorithm is the best. That's one thing by far. The only downside of Facebook is the CPMs are higher on Facebook. So what that essentially means is that you have to spend more money to show it to the same amount of people.
Right.
But I would probably still do Facebook. TikTok is good. I do like TikTok. We've even kind of dabbled in Snapchat, Google, things like that. We kind of go across the board. Um, I would still opt for Facebook, probably, especially if you're starting out, um, because you have the most control over your campaigns. And I think it's just easier to get off the ground because the algorithm is just better on Facebook. On TikTok, you have to spend quite a bit of money oftentimes before the it starts to kind of learn who your target audience is.
Sure. And when you say Facebook, you mean Facebook and Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the campaigns that are run Meta, really, if we're gonna be if we're gonna speak properly to their brand. But yeah, every time I say Facebook, I always mean Facebook and Instagram. Yeah.
Cool. So, in which circumstance would you ever be inclined to push hard for TikTok? Would it be a generational thing if your audience was like 19, 20 years old?
No, not really. Normally, it's to do with because again, people normally say that, but on TikTok, the audience is aging. It's got a lot of an older demographic than people think. I think more so just to do with the copy, the creative, sorry, and the type of person you are, and what you're
Okay.
selling. So on TikTok, selling higher ticket things is quite difficult on TikTok.
Right.
People are just there for a good time. You can get impulse buys if you're selling something cheap. If it's a challenge and it's £5 to sign up, someone might
Like
sign up. But
an
selling
ebook or something?
something, say that again.
Could you like do an ebook if it was like a $25
Yeah,
ebook or something?
yeah. Cheaper impulse buys you can do, for one. Two, your creative has to just be like a TikTok. So one thing about TikTok is that if you're running an ad on TikTok, you need to build a TikTok. Don't worry about the selling so much. Build a TikTok, make it fun. Make sure that it's native. So they're two things, but I just think that has slightly a higher barrier to entry. So if I came to someone who's never made a TikTok before, don't really know what TikTok is, and I gave them advice on, hey, here's the kind of, I gave them a script, it's a lot more difficult to make something that's exciting on TikTok than it is to
Sure.
make something on Facebook. TikTok's just a lot higher paced. So typically you need a bit more skin in the game. You need to be used to it before you can actually go to TikTok and get some success.
Yeah. And I struggle organically with that. Like stuff that works on Reels that gets a good amount of shares and views on TikTok
Mm.
just tanks entirely.
Yeah, it's a lot more. It can be a lot more difficult. Another thing about TikTok as well is that even if you do get loads of views on TikTok, they don't always translate into sales. So
Right.
TikTok's got a lot of vanity metrics, especially for brands where you have 1 million followers on TikTok. That is a lot less powerful than 50,000 subscribers on YouTube or
Sure.
150,000 followers on Instagram. TikTok is very fleeting, and just because you have followers doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get conversions. And I think that TikTok oftentimes, especially when you're starting, the vanity metrics can kind of get to you, and you think that, oh no, this is going really well,
Yeah.
when really you haven't actually made as many sales as you possibly could have on another platform.
Okay, cool. And where do you see, like over the next, I'm not going to say 5 years because with social things move so quickly.
Mm.
Like obviously there's been a huge shift to short form content and now TikTok pushing the video, they pushed it back up to 10 minutes. Like where do you see things going in your opinion over the next couple of years?
I don't know, but I don't like where it's going. Reason
Right.
being, I like having a good hook is important. And you know me, I like to spend time writing the hook and making sure it's good. But
Yeah.
the shorter that people's attention span is going, you have to we're moving towards where you kind of have to clickbait people. And I don't like to do that.
Yeah.
I like to have a good hook, but unless you can get to the information immediately, people don't like it. So, for example, I made a video helping someone. It was talking about how to start your consulting business, and the video was about 45 seconds long. And I made it on TikTok or Instagram. I can't remember which one. I post them on both anyway. And someone said, "This video is terrible, man. This you didn't explain everything." And I thought, well, I'm trying. I got 45 seconds. You could never have started a business with this 45-second video. But
Yeah.
then I also have to blame myself, because in order for people to watch it, I had to tell people that, hey, this is the blueprint. And I found myself falling into this clickbaity trap where
Yeah.
I was initially annoyed at him and thought, well, the video is only 45 seconds. What do you expect? But at the start, I promised him that he would be able to start a business if he watched this video. So I don't really like the way it's going, because I just think the attention span is just so short now that you're almost forced to say something outrageous,
Mm.
even if you don't really want to. And I think it's only going to start um, to get shorter, and you're going to have to start to be more and more outrageous.
I
Um,
agree. So
that's where I think it's.
when my wife's watching TikTok and she's going through them, if she's like, "Oh, look at this one," and then she'll get to one, and when that play bar at the bottom, the progress bar is like moving really slowly, she'll immediately say she won't even care what it is, even if it was something really engaging and entertaining about makeup or something that she's
Mm,
into. She would just say, "That's too long. The next one." Like she
yeah.
won't even give it the time of day because she knows it's going to take up too much of her time.
Mm. No, but the thing is, I find myself doing the same thing. I'll complain about it, but I'll skip through videos all the time. And the thing that's
Yeah,
crazy is that I'll look at my dad, and he'll watch anything on TV. He'll just sit there,
yeah,
and it's something that he might like. So something that he is remotely interested in. Whereas
yeah,
with us on social media, you're given things that are right to they're exactly what you like. So if you like football and you support Chelsea, it will be football content about
yeah.
Chelsea. Everything is there for you. It's perfect. If this was 15 years ago, you would have sat and watched a 2-hour TV program on it. But now, even though it's even though it's good, it's not good enough, and you'll scroll. Let me find the next
Yeah.
one that's better and better and better. And I think it's a bit scary, but I think that's kind of what we're falling into.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all your information. Where can people find out more about you?
So I actually, like I said, I'm building out kind of a new offer. And so the best place to find me is on Instagram. So you can either search my name, Cameron Okomi, or you can search Can Cam Get Rich. Now that the reason that that's the name is because in starting my agency, I posted everything. So if you scroll back on my Instagram, you'll be able to find when I first started all these different things. And the reason that I did that is because I knew that it might be helpful one day. So now where I help agency owners, I help coaches, consultants, I can say to them, hey, look, this is the backlog. I did this. These are things, trials and tribulations that I went through. And I think it's always a lot more, it always cuts deeper when I can actually, you can scroll back and see me when I was going through it, because everybody, once they get there, they always say, oh yeah, man, I struggled when I started. But I actually like to show that I really did. And I posted about it. So yeah,
cool.
that's my...
So the Cam Get Rich is you going through your journey of building your business.
Yeah.
Cool.
Literally just posting about it, and I do kind of long posts about it. And I never framed it as where I'm kind of an expert. It's always I'm kind of a student coming forward. Now, because I'm kind of using it more so for business, I actually kind of more so give advice, and I also just feel a bit more comfortable too. I feel like I've kind of gone through enough now where I can help people. But yeah, so that's my Instagram. Or you can find us at NTC Media Limited. So it's ntcmedialtd.com.
Awesome. And we'll pop all that in the comments below. Thank you so much, Cameron.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me.